Hey you guys, Yulia here. So today's video will be from my own garden. And to be honest with you, I miss it so much. And if you're new here, I'm a landscape designer here in northern New Jersey. So spring and beginning of summer is incredibly busy time for me. And especially this season, I had no time to spend in my garden. So what I wanted to show you today is what happens if you abandon your garden for a season. So this sidewalk border right here, I have not done anything with pretty much since last fall. I didn't mulch, I didn't weed, I didn't add annuals like I usually do. The only thing I did is spray it for deer because I didn't want to lose all of the plants. So I would spray a deer repellent every week or every 2 weeks. And that's it. So I'm just going to walk the garden and show you what happened. Little trigger warning, if you're not into naturalistic or wild gardens, this video is probably not for you. But if you love them, I think you'll enjoy it. So here's my abandoned garden. So what I'm going to do is just walk through it, show you some plants that are blooming right now, and also tell you about the lessons that I learned because I didn't care for this for a few months or more. So the first plant is this Eryngium yuccafolium. This is a plant that I started winter sowing last year. It's actually a really cool structural plant. It is not in full bloom yet, but I am loving it already. The Franz Schubert Phlox is looking beautiful. This is a perennial that you can rely on for beautiful blooms, and it pretty much blooms all summer long. And right here I have Euphorbia marginata that reseeded itself from last year. It is an aggressive native annual, but I'd rather have this than weeds. It definitely suppressed some of the weeds that could have been here. There's some other phlox that are starting to bloom right there. There's a pycnianthemum right here. And I do have feverfews everywhere. I let them reseed because, again, as a weed suppressor. And also sometimes they hybridize, like this one, and they become doubles. Look how cute those little button flowers are. Oh. There is a spiderwort right here. And if I were here this morning, these flowers would have been completely open. Spiderworts flowers only open until about lunchtime, and then they close until the following morning. There's another Franz Schubert Phlox that I divided, I think last year. So here's lesson number one for me. Because I planted this particular area very thickly and with pretty assertive plants like Joe Pye weed. This is a shorter variety, Euphoria ruby right here, and also switchgrass. Weeds pretty much do not have any chance of growing in between these plants. So planting things thickly with assertive plants definitely saves on maintenance. Also Calamintha that you see right there that is starting to bloom, it's a pretty assertive plant, and if you plant them thickly, they'll look pretty good. There are hardly any weeds here. Now this plant right here is an iris that bloomed beautifully earlier in the spring. I am actually going to remove it from the spot though, because when the flowers die, they look terrible. Some plants, when their flowers die and dry out, they still look very structural, not irises. Look at that. So I'm actually going to remove this one from here and put it into the more higher maintenance areas that I have in the garden. Stachys Hummelo is looking beautiful. This is one of the favorites with the pollinators, and just like a wonderful, wonderful plant to have in the garden. Now I was a little bit disappointed with my Agastache here. It disappeared. I had really healthy 3 plants here, and now I have like 2 weaklings. I think the Arctic blast that we had in the winter killed some of it, so I have to go get some more. There is some milkweeds that are starting to bloom. This is Asclepias verticillata. I really like the interesting texture of this plant, but Again, because I left this garden unattended, I kind of saw that it's starting to pop up everywhere and seed itself. I wouldn't say aggressively, but I have to keep an eye on it. Now, this part of the garden does not look abandoned at all. In fact, it looks spectacular. And this Verbena hastata here is such a cute little plant. Well, not little, but the flower is a little. Also popular with pollinators, and I see these really unusual insects on it. I love it. Look at that. These echinaceas here I've had for a while. Echinaceas are super low maintenance, very reliable, great for pollinators too. Sorry about the plane. And this area here is one of my favorites, with the Russian sage, the switchgrass, Echinacea pallida. That is such a graceful echinacea. It's tall, and those slender petals are so beautiful. This plant right here is Sedalcea, and I really love it. However, it is a short blooming perennial, kind of like a week or two, and then it disappears. But that's okay, I enjoy it nonetheless. There's some little blue stems and some more Phlox. These are actually started as bare root from Costco bags, but they're looking beautiful. And this is lesson number 2 over here, is that I usually heavily plant this area with annuals and dahlias in the beginning of summer or late spring. So they suppress all of the weeds, and because I did not plant anything here, I have this weed, I don't even know the name of it, it kind of is new to me, came in and took over the entire area. And this is what happens if you don't plant or don't mulch a certain area. Nature will come in and plant something herself, whether you like it or not. But I do have a few beautiful perennials here from previous years, like this Gara and Parthenium right here. Look at this bee. I don't even know what that is. So cute. So, I also left some alliums that were blooming earlier in the spring for some structure, but I'm going to take these down because I like to dry them and use them in holiday decorations. And this area right here, this is the ugly part of gardening in the suburban areas in a health strip, is the trash. Some people just throw trash in it, and it's not often. It happens occasionally, but it does happen. But most of the people are very, very nice. Now this plant right here is true hyssop, or hyssopus. People call Agastache hyssop, but this is the real hyssop right here. Again, really favorite of pollinators, and it's a medicinal plant. It's beautiful, and I started it from seed a long time ago. Very easy to start from seed. Now this area here are just some shrubs. I have a hydrangea that got hit by deer regardless of me spraying it, so I lost some blooms over here. But because this is again planted so thickly with this miscanthus grass, weeds do not have a chance. But this miscanthus grass is way too big for this border, so I'm actually going to downsize it. It's just such a monster. This area is again planted very thickly with some Echinacea jopai weed and Calamintha, but what I'm excited about is this Veronicastrum Fascination. I've been waiting for this plant to bloom for 2 years. They're kind of slow to start, but once they start growing, they're just so beautiful. Look at these candle-like beautiful flowers, and the color is gorgeous too. There's another one that I have here that is not blooming yet. This is white in color. And there are some Veronicas. On the other side, that is Purpleicious. That is pretty much in full bloom or going out of bloom right now. There's some larkspurs that seeded themselves on the other side. And that was another thing that I was kind of looking at as to how many annuals that I left standing will reseed or self-seed. And there's quite a few. So this area here is not my favorite. It's never been my favorite, even when I was taking care of this garden, because I didn't have a plan as to what kind of plants I want to put in here. This was like my dump area. If I go to the nursery, I like something, I would plant it here because it's a sunny location and soil is decent. But things are just this hodgepodge of plants, and I'm going to redo this area for sure. But I have the Phlox blooming here right now, and this Eryngium, which is a weed, but it's a very pretty weed. Look at this, how cute is that? Also, the Madame Julia Carvan clematis is still blooming, and the Filipendula is starting to bloom. It's beautiful, beautiful panicle flowers right here. So this area is another one of those areas that is heavily planted by annuals for the summer. This is my reserved spot, and I didn't do that, and as you can see, it's covered in weeds. And I could have mulched this to prevent this, but I just didn't have the time. So just gonna have to take care of that. But again, it was interesting to see how many annuals will reseed. So like this poppies, they reseeded right here and over there. There's some larkspur. But again, Joe Pye weed, this is the regular variety. It's such a thick plant. Weeds have no chance to grow anywhere near this. And also bee balm right there in the back, pretty aggressive as well. This is another one of those areas that I plant with annuals, with Cleome specifically, and I'm not sure if I will find any at this time of year. If I don't, I will try to find something, but something has to be planted here because chickweed is kind of running the show right now. And it also is going to seed, which is terrifying. I have to get in here. This is my priority number one. But this area is also starting to fill in with elephant ears, which I love, 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 love that bold texture. These echinaceas here reseeded themselves, and I love the combination that they provide with the grasses here and this elephant ear. This is the latest big leaf. We're finally starting to get some heft to the garden. But yes, this is my abandoned garden that I have not been taking care of for months and months. It looked very beautiful in the spring with all of the tulips. I think because I sprayed for deer, I still had some tulips left. But yeah, this is it. All right, you guys, this is it for today's video. And what I'm going to do next is go out there and garden. I would like to spend a few hours today weeding and mulching, maybe go out in the nursery and get some annuals, and maybe garden a little bit more this coming week because my schedule seemed to be a little bit lighter. And I gotta tell you, I miss it so much because it brings me so much joy. Anyway, thank you so much, you guys, for watching today's video. I hope you learned something new, and I will see you in the next one.